Previously on Bryan Mullins the Fox.
Hello everybody, I'm Bryan Mullins the Fox.
I have nothing against you personally, Bryan. I don't hate you.
Hello guys, it's Bryan here. And this is the result of lots of hard work, time, and effort.
You need to drop the whole furry shtick because it's rotting your brain.
I'm not pro-CP, of course not. I'm anti-CP, but I'm also against banning it.
I don't understand. You're against CP, but are in favor of it being legal. What?
Anybody that tries to call me a pedophile, tries to call me pro-pedo, tries to call for any unjust or undue murder or harm towards me for hurting your fucking precious feelings. If pancake batter matters to you the most, pick a wall and stick to it. I don't fucking care anymore. Pick a wall and fucking stick to it. I'm almost 25 years old and I know for a fact that I'm right. I know for a fact that I'm right.
And now,
I used to think that Bryan Mullins the Fox was just a fucking retard. A retarded virgin furry. And after some careful examination, I have come to the conclusion that no, Bryan Mullins the Fox is exactly the pedophile everybody thinks he is. If you have not seen those previous videos I mentioned, they'll be linked down below and probably up here in the corner somewhere. Fundamentally speaking, I will not be rehashing many of the things that I said there. And so, if you feel like you need more lore on the subject, that would be the place to go. However, for those of you that know who Bryan Mullins the Fox is and have seen those previous videos, I have a few updates for you. Update number 1 is that Bryan Mullins the Fox apparently lost a lot of weight.
I'm trying to lose weight again. So far, in the last 2 days, I've lost 9.7 pounds. I'll try to slow it down a bit, so even though I still lose weight, the rate of which I'll lose it will be slowed down a bit. Went from 222.7 pounds to 213 pounds. I doubt it will make a huge difference.
10 out of fucking 10. It's great. How did he lose that weight though?
At the library, it took me well over an hour to eat a huge cucumber, about 12 to 14 inches long. I ate it all in one sitting.
I totally believe that you just sat there at the local library scarfing a fucking 14-inch cucumber like some fucking thirsty desperate to deep throat black cock, and they didn't kick you out of that fucking library as a result of being a fucking weird freak. Speaking of weird freak, we also have his crushes. You see, in a previous video, I had mentioned that Bryan Mullins the Fox is that kind of guy that would sit there and write this whole like furry fan fiction about how it is he just loves that weird character from All Dogs Go to Heaven 2. Right? He had a massive crush. You see, he not only tells us what his previous crush was, previous to that character, but also goes on to say what his current crush is. Spoiler, none of them are human.
Fun fact, I've had fictional character crushes before I had one with Sasha LaFur in 2014 and lost my non-furry virginity. The first fictional character crush I can remember having as a kid was with Marlene from The Penguins of Madagascar. It's official. Zen the Corsac Fox from Kung Fu Panda 4 is my next official fictional character crush. First time in a decade since I established one myself.
Why is it so difficult for you, Bryan, to have a crush like a normal fucking person? You know, a crush on, I don't know, a person. Instead of swatting furries, I think that that's a travesty. I don't think you should swat furries. Instead, you should send fucking animal control to their home so they can be removed from the premises and shoved into the pound and then turned later into fucking like furry slaves for rich people. But before I go into depth of why I think he's a pedophile, let's talk about some of the copium that he was spewing after his video talking about how we should legalize child porn was removed off the platform.
So, I got bad news. The NBTD series I was going to start scheduling for August 6th will be cancelled because of this. The truth is so gruesome and scary, it's no longer safe for YouTube on this channel. It's still on BitChute and should hopefully still have it on Rumble.
Now, despite my issues with Bryan, I'm a consistent person, and so therefore, I didn't think it was right for all those people to flag down his video. In fact, I actually responded to his community post with my own, saying that everybody that flagged down his video are cowards. And I stand by that. They are very much cowards. So how did he repay this kindness? Although I wouldn't really call it kindness, but I digress. Well, he replied with this.
It's odd that you went to bat for Bryan when his video got taken down, and this is how he repays the favor. Vlad was and is one of the people who directly contributed to that happening by spreading misinformation, as in lying about what I really said and how he put words in my mouth.
Nobody put any words in your mouth, Bryan. All I ever did was listen to the words that you said and then respond to them in kind. It's not my fault if half the shit you say is a bunch of schizoid nonsense like the following.
I just figured out why parents would want to wait until the soon-to-be victim hits puberty. It is to give predators and the government more of an opportunity to get them while they're still young, and that puberty fucks with their hormones as well.
Bryan, that doesn't make any sense. That is fucking insane. The fuck is wrong with you? Build yourself a bird furry outfit, climb to the tallest fucking building you can find, and then leap from it. Fly like a bird. Fucking lunatic. And to make matters worse, one of his pals is arguably a pedophile. Because not everybody on the planet has quote-unquote intrusive thoughts about grooming children.
So tell me about the intrusive thoughts. What's that about? Murderous mongrel. Trauma symptom. Fucking nightmarish trauma symptom that sprouts up after 2 to 6 months of being on constant survival mode. Likely the reason their intrusive thoughts of grooming is because the topic was a constant discussion point at the time when I first had any.
I don't care if you claim it's some symptom of some fucking gay shit or what have you, it doesn't fucking matter, alright? Nobody is just casually walking down the street like, fuck, I want to groom a child today. Nobody thinks that way. So you've heard his takes on child porn, on his animal crushes, and we now know that one of his pals is most, definitely at minimum sus, but I would call a pedophile personally. I would not trust Mongrel to watch my kid. And I most certainly wouldn't trust Bryan Mullins the Fox to watch my kid, because what follows? And what follows is clips from a video that he titled, How to Actually Raise Your Children. Yeah, really.
For the first 2 to 3 years, here are the only things you would need to do when it comes to taking care of and raising said child. Number 1, change their diapers anytime you smell a stink that's impossible to ignore. But don't change their diapers too often, because it would just be a waste of diapers. Say between 1.5 to 3 hours when they're a newborn, and by the time they're a toddler or 2 or 3 years old, once at best every 10 hours. Every kid is unique though. This isn't a set in stone, be an end all estimate for when you should change a toddler's diaper. Every kid is unique. Some have sudden steamers, and others have campy logs. By doing this, you should save somewhere between $200 and $500 on diapers alone each year.
So right out the gate, Bryan is quite literally promoting child abuse. The reason why I say it's child abuse, for those of you that don't have children, whenever the kid shits themselves, if you don't change it immediately, they can develop a rash, a very uncomfortable rash, and it can get infected and all that other not fun, gross shit. If you don't change the diaper every time and just let it sit there and fester, that's ultimately generally the result. You actually want to change the diaper immediately as soon as you smell that smelly smell. Bryan is literally promoting the opposite of that in the effort of saving money. And if really saving money is the goal, why not just say, well, fuck the kid entirely and just never change their diapers. Just let them shit all over the fucking floor and piss all over everywhere. Wouldn't that save you loads of money on diapers? You could just use a reusable diaper if you really, really are that money conscious. Bryan has no idea what he's talking about. He has no kids. Nobody's ever gonna fuck Bryan because he's a fucking virgin and he's fat.
When they're babies that don't even have their baby teeth yet, and if If the mother can naturally lactate, let her pucker them up until they reach the age of 2 years old. When they develop teeth, keep them on baby food supply until they're all developed and the child can eat foods that require the use of their baby teeth. When they hit their toddler years, feed them an equal balance of protein, fiber, fats, carbs, and veggies. If the mother figure suggests otherwise out of just spiteful contrarianism, or because she thinks it might do harm to them somehow for some fucking reason, do the opposite without telling her and see how she responds. That'll teach her not to be such a bad parent and a bitch.
Weaponize your child against your significant other. Great fucking parenting. In no way, shape, or form is that manipulative, abusive, or anything. Nope. Please, for the love of fuck, Bryan, cut your fucking dick off.
If any kind of yours wants to know what the place they came from looks like, if you will, just show them for a short period of time and do this after warning them that it might scar them mentally. Note, this is not child abuse, but suppressing their innocence by depriving them of that sexual knowledge is. In fact, if you want a brother or a sister and you're a little kid, and if you're old enough to somehow know where you came from, ask them kindly, if they may allow you to, watch in a safe enough angle the process of intercourse without scarring you any further for life.
That is child abuse. Showing your children porn is child abuse, Bryan. That's,
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
That is both child abuse and insanely illegal. I cannot believe Bryan, unironically, thought it was a good idea to pull up OBS or whatever the fuck and be like, yo, I'm gonna advocate for showing children porn. But anyway, in this same video, he gives a little bit more copium on his legalized child porn video being removed from the internet.
All my video promoted is a multi-pronged approach of legalizing all porn, including fictional CP, by phasing out illicit CSAM material and even CR material, so that child traffickers are run out of business that way.
The problem with this, as you guys will come to learn, is his definition of what porn is. And once you learn what his definition of porn is, you'll quickly understand why this rationale is stupid.
And stigma, in only this one context and one context alone, is the same stigma surrounding porn in general. Not just child porn, because people are too fucked to get the difference between that and actual child abuse material, or even child rape material. Because the said abuse material isn't staged or faked, it's real. People making money off of that trivializes the very definition of porn. Porn is supposed to be staged.
So to translate for the normal viewer that isn't a retarded furry virgin, what Bryan Mullins is actually arguing here is that child pornography as we know it isn't actually pornography because it isn't staged. But the problem with that is that if you look up the definition of pornography, it doesn't have anything to do with it being staged. In fact, it just says anything that depicts any sexual act for the purposes of enticing somebody. I'll be posting the screenshot, of course, of the definition on the screen if you want to look at it. This, of course, would include the weird romance novels that white women read for some reason that don't even include images. So what Bryan is saying here actually runs very contrary to the very definition he says is being trivialized by calling CSAM material CP. What he's essentially arguing in a nutshell is that child porn would be fine if it was scripted, budgeted, and staged. He would be okay with a pornography that features a child or a minor, and as long as it's staged and scripted, it's perfectly fine, right? I mean, this is ignoring the fact if you actually just go on the internet and look up pornography, no, not the definition, like you go to Pornhub and look at it, all pornography involves penetration. Okay, not all, but most. So in essence, he's still arguing for kids being penetrated on video, just as long as it's scripted and staged. Anyway, now that we have all of that established and out of the way, let's go into the clips that I harvested from Bryan's 4-hour fucking yap fest of a video that he did relatively recently. Oh, and by the way, just for funsies, the last few clips I showed you and the clips I'm about to show you now were all mined from 6 hours worth of Bryan Mullins the Fox content. And you might be thinking that was like, 3, 4, 7 videos. No, it was 2. It was literally just 2 videos. Let's look at this. This is a giant schizo post by Bryan. He just went completely off the deep end, and it is fucking beautiful.
On April 13th, 2024, the same day that Gilded Poo initially premiered his response to it, he highlighted something he called BDSM porn indirectly as some kind of parody of Irwin Allen's Lost in Space. He highlighted 2 examples of him buying pornography, and I'm just going along with one of them because I couldn't decipher what the fuck the other one is in the lower shelf of his bookshelf. And the fat sack of potato shit just tells me that I need brain surgery because of this. Come on, really? That's the best response to what I've said about it? BDSM porn, he said he purchased indirectly. One of the 2 he had the balls to point out as a gotcha against my argument that's similar against those who were in favor of the war on drugs. It had to be a porn parody, but I couldn't find anything BDSM about any pornographic parody of Irwin Allen's Lost in Space. But what I found is hentai. But even some of the hentai with the name Lost in Space might also be based on a manga known as Astra Lost in Space. Why Vlad may lie about it being BDSM and not hentai at all is totally not suspicious at all. The only type of parody porn of Irwin Allen's Lost in Space that I could find even coming close to the Lost in Space title and how he referenced it is hentai. I don't know exactly which one he's referring to as an argument against me, like I said just before. But either it's a porn parody of a manga where all the characters in it are 17 years old and are all technically underaged except for the mother figure, or the epilogue where they're all 24 except for the mother. Or it may just be a porn parody that also happens to be hentai, but it may just be the same as the other option. Besides the point that it's fucking weird to buy and collect porn to begin with when you're an anti. And he's no better than those who jerk up to underaged porn as in hentai, if that's what he was ever referring to begin with, just for not jerking off to any of that shit himself when he's an anti with porn. And that's to say what he referenced in his response video to LFC1 was actually hentai that includes underaged characters, with all of the major ones being 17 years old outside of their parents, and puts him on the list of antis that turn out to be gigantic hypocrites for that matter.
Wow. Just wow. So I know some of you may be confused on what the fuck he's talking about. What he's talking about is a clip from my more recent response to Bryan Mullins. I'll play that now. So what's really funny about what he's saying here is that it's very akin to an argument that I've made in the past, that we should legalize all drugs because at the end of the day, it's better to have a legal market than a black market. And besides, who the fuck wants to support people like the cartel? I mean, they use the purchasing of drugs to fund other things that are far worse than the purchasing and selling of drugs. And beyond all of that, you know who won the war on drugs? Drugs. And you see, that's a lot different from purchasing pornography of any kind. Whenever I go and I purchase a bottle of Elijah Craig, I am just purchasing my ability to get super fucking drunk. What I'm not purchasing is an entire idea. I'm not purchasing the celebration of an idea. I'm just purchasing a drug. However, when I go and I purchase, let's say, I don't know, BDSM porn, I am not just purchasing a plastic disc, if they still sell those, that contains a video file of 2 people having BDSM sex on video. I am also purchasing the celebration of the idea of BDSM sex. So I'm doing a lot more than just purchasing an object. In other words, Bryan, the legalization of the possession, distribution, and use of drugs and alcohol differ from the legalization of child pornography because when legalizing child pornography, what you would actually be doing is normalizing the set of behaviors it celebrates, the very set of behaviors that the whole of society in the majority of the planet woefully condemn. This motherfucker saw an arrow that was pointing right here on SpongeBob, asserted it was on Lost in Space. He must be talking about hentai and lolicon. No. And in that clip, I said you're not just purchasing plastic discs, assuming they still make those, whilst having a shelf of said plastic discs. It was me making fun of me. Somehow, because I happened to use BDSM as an example, he saw an arrow pointing at SpongeBob, thought it was pointing at Lost in Space, asserted that I was talking about owning BDSM porn, looked it up, found a lolicon parody of Lost in Space, and then asserted that I was a lolicon. But the question that I really have, Bryan, how did you even know where to look for lolicon? That's fucking weird, Bryan. Is this really what you meant, Bryan, when you said you were gonna show everybody a different side of Gilded Poo, aka Vlad, that nobody has ever seen before?
I'll also expose a different side of Vlad you've never realized before.
If that was really what you meant, Bryan, I could not possibly be more bored out of my fucking mind. That was the most boring own I have ever seen in my life. Generally speaking, when you're trying to own somebody on the internet, you don't, again, generally speaking, make up an entire fucking schizo post that really does nothing but make you look fucking insane. In fact, some might say that's the opposite of getting an own. But now, as we're coming to the end of our discussion of the pedo-furry incel virgin, we're going to go into my favorite clip from the aforementioned 4-hour fucking yap fest of a video. And I love this clip so much.
Nobody wants to be Gilded Poo, a sometimes financially irresponsible when it comes to him buying too much expensive booze, like Elijah Craig. Disingenuous, degenerate, hypocritical, anti-porn, moral fat.
Out of everything Bryan has ever said, I have never felt so offended as I was when watching that clip. You see, if Bryan actually spent like 15 seconds actually Googling the Elijah Craig small batch I was drinking in my video on him, he would have noticed that that bottle is around $30, as you can see on the fucking screen. Here I have a bottle of Jameson Stout Edition. That was about, I don't know, it was like $36, $35, something like that. Johnny Walker Black Label. That was about $45 at a Walgreens. Here's a bottle I've been drinking throughout this video. Lafroig 10. Great shit. About $50, Bryan. $50. Isn't that crazy? Art Beg Korivrekken. I pronounced that terribly, but I don't care. And that, Bryan Mullins, is $120. The expensive booze, the actually expensive booze that I showcased here, the Lafroig 10 and the Art Beg Korivrekken, are not bottles that I purchased out of my own pocket. Those were provided to me by my gracious Subscribe Star supporters that will be listed right now. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Cheers. Oh, and before I forget, a special thanks to Beckett from Cope and Seethe, who lives in a country where he can't just walk outside and do this. Unfortunately, though, I live in a country where, while this is premiering, if I show this gun in the video will be taken down by YouTube. I guess since Google is technically worldwide, it doesn't really matter what country I live in, but whatever.